name's Charlie and welcome to my channel and welcome to my weekly reads. I hope you guys had a good Easter if you celebrate. Let me know what you've been up to, what you've been reading. And before I get on to the chatty stuff, I'm going to talk to you about the books that I've finished since the last time I spoke to you. So the first one that I want to talk about is Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris. This is one I've started a few weeks ago, but I wanted to sort of like get to the end of it and sort of like finish it, even though I have been enjoying it. So that is one thing I will say. And this is, in case you don't know, is set in the early 1990s, and we follow Zora, whose family has decided, her husband and her mother have decided to go to London and stay with their daughter and their grandchildren. But Zora has decided that she just wants to stay and she doesn't want to leave. I don't think she realises what is coming for her, like what's ahead of her. And yeah, so this is like, obviously this comes with a lot of trigger warnings, and content warnings, sorry. So obviously if you're sensitive to things like that, make sure you research, make sure you find out what they are, like obviously go onto Storygraph, go onto Goodreads or whatever. But yeah, the thing I love most about this book is how it talks about art, because like Zora herself, obviously as events and obviously the war is kicking off, I love how she turns to art, and I love how it sort of is an escape for her, and then also like she finds, even though because obviously resources are hard to get to in the war times, and Zora finds other ways of creating art with through like natural resources and stuff, and I just loved that, and I just loved how the discussion of all of that, because yeah, so I mean I myself, like I wouldn't say I'm an artist, but I do like to do like paintings and drawings and create things, and I know it's a way of like channeling my feelings, and so I just loved all of those elements. I just loved yeah, so yeah, I think this is a strong read, and obviously you'll find out when I finish talking about the books I've read where I place it, but yeah, yeah, this is one I really this is a classically me book, I would say. So yeah, I kind of knew I would like it, but it's good that I actually did. So yeah. As we're talking about women's prize books, I'm also going to talk about The Dog of the North. This is another one I listened to on audiobook. So this I can't remember who the narrator is. I'll put the narrator on screen. The narrator was really good, and I think maybe that's partly what maybe increased my enjoyment of this, because in terms of plot, I cannot, like I finished this probably like a week ago. I cannot really remember a whole lot of the plot, but I did really enjoy the book as I was listening to it. So like I don't like, so I feel like I could just like go back and remind myself through my notes, but I feel like that's kind of cheating, and therefore because I cannot remember as much of it, which I feel like that is down to in some part the book itself. This is what I always feel, because when there's books I love, I kind of like, they stick with you and they stay in your brain. So when I finished this book, and as I was reading this book and listening to this book, I really enjoyed it. I honestly really did, and I know not everyone finds that with this book, because lots of people have had trouble with this book, and with the characters being somewhat, and again, unlikable. And it's a largely plotless book, because I thought there was going to be much more plot again than there actually was. But that didn't actually bother me as I was consuming it and as I was listening to it. But since then, it means that when I'm reflecting on I can remember the characters. I feel like the characters are stronger for me than the actual plot itself. The grandma I can remember a lot about, and the lead character I remember about, but I can't actually remember the lead character's name, that being said. So yeah, I feel like it's not one that stuck with me. So therefore, in terms of my ratings, I feel like that has to reflect that, even though when I first finished it, I put it in my ratings higher than it currently is sitting. Then I finished, because it was Easter weekend then, I was like really wanting over the bank holiday days to like listen to some comfort reads and to have something very cosy. So previously I had purchased Legends and Lattes on my Xigxag. It was just the perfect book for the Easter weekend, and it's narrated by the author himself, Baldree, and he does such an amazing job. I think he actually is, like, his career before he wrote this book was as an audiobook narrator. I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but either which way, like, he does such a great job of bringing this book to life. In this book we follow Viv, who is an orc, and she previously was a barbarian and sort of like as a career, and so she comes to this town who and they had never ever heard of like coffee before. They've never like drunk it before, so she decides to set up this, like, it's her dream to like change her life, and so she sets up this like coffee shop, and she just like obviously meets a bunch of characters along the way, and it's just so wonderful. Like, it's very, very cozy. It's not like gonna change the earth or anything, and it's not like the best writing, but it is a really good comfort read, I can confirm. So yeah, the thing is as well, when I was listening to this, because it has amazing descriptions of food, and the whole time when I was listening, because it was the Easter weekend like I said, and it just made me want to go and like bake all the things, like cinnamon rolls, and like what else was there was all these other like things. I was like, obviously some of these were, a lot of them were like made up, but I was like, it just makes you hungry, you know, when you're listening to a book that kind of like, it just makes you hungry when you're listening to it, which is like, to me, a good thing. This is something I enjoyed. So yeah, it was a perfect Easter weekend listen. So yeah, highly recommend the audiobook of that, especially if you're interested. The only thing I would say for this is there was like, at the end of this, there was like a bonus like short story on the end of the audiobook, and that I did not enjoy. So I'm kind of like, in terms of Travis Baldree's future books, I'm not like, whilst I really enjoyed that story, I'm not like running out to go and get the next one, even though I have seen that there is a new one coming out, I think in November. I saw on Victoria, from what Victoria read's Instagram, it's been announced. So, but I think that's a prequel, so I'm kind of, if it was more story based upon the cafe shop and the people within that the cafe, I would be interested, but all the other characters, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'd be that as interested, and I think that the next book is like a prequel, so yeah, I don't know, we shall see. Might just wait and see what people think of that. But yeah, so that was that one. Then so the next book I read was Poo Devi's Rebel Queen by Claire Fauvel. This is one that was on Scribd, and oh, I know why, because I'd said to you guys about this previously. When I finished Bandit Queens, I found out that this book's existence, and I desperately wanted to get to it, and I did get to it. So yeah, this is really hard hitting, but it was just done so well, and it was so interesting. If you guys have heard that the book The Bandit Queens by Perini Shrove, which is on the Women's Prize longlist currently, so it's inspired by the character Poo Devi, right? And in this graphic novel that I have read, that was illustrated by Claire Fauvel, this is basically Poo Devi's life, and we find out all the history of her. So at 11 years old, as a young child, she was married off to this horrendous man who abused her, and so this is like, this book is filled with horrendous things. But then sort of it goes into other places, and she then somehow or another, which I'm not going to spoil, kind of gets involved in this like rebel clan and becomes this inspirational figure. And she was an inspirational figure across India, and she was known for like sort of like social justice, and she was known for anyone that was the husbands that were abusive to their wives. She would come and find and kill many of them, and sort of serve justice to them. So yeah, and yeah, she was this big figure in India, and I hadn't ever heard of her before The Bandit Queens, I don't think. But yeah, just so interesting hearing about her life, and then how she was involved in politics later on. So yeah, it was just I highly recommend this graphic novel. It's just so good. It's, like I said, full of content warnings, and very, very raw and hard-hitting, and yeah, so not one to go into if you're sensitive to those things, but yeah, definitely worth like finding out about. And I feel like I want to go and see if there's any other books potentially about Poo Devi and find out a bit more, but no, yeah, she was just such an inspirational woman. So yeah, highly recommend that book, like I said. Right, the next book I finished was To Strip the Flesh, and this is by a trans author, Toda, and this was like, so basically this is like a series of like, in this, I thought this was like one story, but actually it's a series of short stories. The first of which it has content warnings for like death of a parent, and to do with cancer. So just letting you know that, because I didn't know that going in, and even though it wasn't like, it's only a very short story, but it still did hit me for reasons. So yeah, this was a really good little comics, it's like short story series. I think the title story was my favourite out of, I think there's like 5 within this comic. It's like 200 pages or something. It might be more than that. But my favourite one was the title story, to strip the flesh. So yeah, it was really interesting, and talks about like a father-son sort of relationship. Yeah, really good. So yeah, well, again, another one I would recommend. And I got this, I read this on my Kindle. Alright, so the last book that I finished was Dear Centurion by Akwaeke Emezi. This is Akwaeke Emezi's memoir, and this is one that I would have wanted to get to anyway, because I'm trying to work my way through Emezi's work, but it also serves as, I'm reading BookTuber's favourites this year, and this was on Scott from Gunpowder Fiction and Plots top books of the year last year. He doesn't really read non-fiction, I don't think, and I think this was like potentially the only non-fiction that was on his like top book, so that's it's sort of even more impressive for that reason. And honestly, like, this is like honestly like going to be on my favourite books of the year this year for me, because it was just phenomenal. Like, Akwaeke Emezi is a great like author in general, and it has so much within this within these pages, and obviously it talks about things that you would expect them to talk about in terms of publishing, etc., and like their journey into sort of like getting to where they are now, sort of thing. But it also talks about loads of other things, and like it talks about writers within their community, experiences they've had with those writers. It also talks about their chronic illness and their chronic pain that they've suffered, and like sort of how they've experienced burnout. And I think there is something for many people to relate to within these pages, even though you wouldn't necessarily like think that, because like Emezi to me is like just like such a legend. But yeah, like how they talk about things, it's just, you just can't but help but feel for them, and just like they're just so wonderful. I know they're having a break from publishing this year. It's in 2023, so yeah, which is a shame. But I've only got after this now. I've only got one more of their books to read, which is their poetry collection. So yeah, I'm just gonna like hold off and not rush to get to that, because otherwise I would have read all of their works. So yeah, yeah. So that was that book. That's a 5-star read. I just loved it so much. And there's a quote within it that I wrote down, which I'll put on screen. It's, "What is love if not a shield thrown up around you when you are too injured to throw it up yourself?" So yeah, this was one of many quotes that I had saved, and yeah, I just yeah, like I said, 5 stars. So, one of the books, so the books I'm currently reading for you guys to know, so you guys can know, I'm currently reading Shrines of Gaiety by Kate Atkinson. This is one I've got on audiobook currently from BorrowBox, and the narrator is the lovely Jason Watkins, who's obviously like a famous actor. And this sort of is set in the 1920s, and it's sort of surrounding this sort of like family, Nellie Cocker and her family and her kids, and she's like this famous sort of like character within this era, sort of thing. And I'm only very early doors into this, so I don't really have a huge amount of opinions on it. I'm still also, in terms of physical books, I'm still currently reading Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. I feel like I'm taking my time with this one, and I'm not overly reading it so super fast. So, but I think once the kids go back to school and I've got a bit more like time, I think I'll be able to concentrate on it better. With fantasy and things, I feel like I always need, it takes me a bit more concentration. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to finish that the next time I speak to you next week. I've also picked up Transitional by Munroe Bergdorf, but I've left that book upstairs. That's Munroe Bergdorf's like memoir, and yeah, early doors into it. I just love it so much. It's another memoir that I've been loving, because Munroe is amazing. So yeah, I'll talk about that more in next week's video. Now it's time for my updated Women's Prize rankings, which is what I do every week because you guys are enjoying it. So yeah, the books I finished this week, obviously, like I said, were Black Butterflies and The Dog of the North, so you'll see where they place. I've only got now 2 more books left to read on the Women's Prize long list, which is Stone Blind and Trespasses. I'm picking up Stone Blind for my sister, Emily from Nova Novels, and I'm picking that up tomorrow, so at the weekend or beginning of next week, so hopefully I'll get to that soon. But yeah, so yeah, those are the ones I've got left. So in 14th place, we've got Pod by Lady in Paul. You guys know my feelings on that one. That was one I DNF'd. 13th place is Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh. Then 12th place, Glory by No Violet Bulawayo. 11th place is Memphis by Tara M. Stringfellow. 10th place is Homesick by Jennifer Croft. 9th place is Children of Paradise by Camilla Gradova. 8th place is Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. 7th place I've put The Dog of the North by Elizabeth Mackenzie. This still might work its way further down the list, being honest, because like I said, the longer I'm thinking about it, like the less I can remember of it, so therefore potentially next week this might be even further down the pile. I'm really sorry because I really did enjoy it, but that's why it's like still higher up for now, but I feel like it needs to be lower really. But not because of I didn't enjoy it, but just because I can't remember it. That's why. In 6th place is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel, which is still one I really loved, like I said, but also hated as well. Loved and hated, but because I loved it so much, it's still in my top 6. In 5th place is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. 4th place is Black Butterflies by Priscilla Morris, because I just love this book so much, as you would have heard. 3rd place is still The Bandit Queens, because whilst I love Black Butterflies, it hasn't overtaken The Bandit Queens for me. I just loved how The Bandit Queens was done so much. Then 2nd place is obviously Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kinselver, and then in 1st place, which has still not changed and I don't think it will change, is Wandering Souls by Cecile Pinn. And yeah, so those are my updated Women's Prize rankings. Let me know what your how you're ranking your Women's Prize. Which ones are your favourites still? Has any of yours changed? Which ones have you read any new ones this week? Let me know. Right, so now we can get on to sort of the more nattery stuff. So this week, right, obviously like we're in the holidays now, so I think we're coming to the end of the Easter holidays, and I've just loved having time at home with my children. It's been so much fun. We've just had like such wonderful quality family time. At the weekend we just played like Brook Family Games is what we call it. We played Unstable Unicorns, which is like a card game where which we were just laughing and screaming and just having so much fun with. Yeah, and then also another game we've been playing is Overcooked, which was one quite a few years ago. If you watched my channel a few years ago, that is one we used to love. And this is like a co-op game on we've got it's on offer on the Nintendo currently, so we purchased it because I think we had it on like Xbox previously many years ago. But yeah, so actually if you're in the UK and you want to get a copy, it's on offer on Nintendo at the moment. It was very cheap. So yeah, it's just a cute co-op game. We work together and you basically are like working in like at this cafe thing, and you have to aim to get the food out as quickly as possible, basically. It's a bit more to it than that, but that's basically the premise of it. And yeah, it's just really, really loads of fun. And again, another one we sort of screaming at our lungs, like it's at the top of our lungs, but you have, like I said, we're working together. So that's the idea of it, that you're working together. But yeah, loads of fun. Then another thing, so I also this week have visited my sister's kittens quite a few times, and we call them because they're growing so much. So since the last time I spoke to you about the kittens, I'll put some pictures on screen. They've grown so much, so like yeah, we call them the Asbo kitties, because basically now they're like able to like do so much more, and they're like climbing around all over the place, like climbing up the windows. They just make us laugh so much. And yeah, then like I said, their names are Marbles and Misty, and Marbles I think thinks that she's a tiger. She just makes me laugh so much. It's like how she pounces kind of reminds me of in the Aristocats, Toulouse. There's a little character called Toulouse in the Aristocats, and how he pounces, that's what Marbles reminds me of. It always just makes me giggle. And Misty's just really funny as well. But yeah, they're growing and changing, but yeah, we still love them so much. So yeah, we've had time with them this week, and we've had sort of going over and kitty sitting whilst my sister was at work a little bit. But yeah, Another thing is I treated myself at the weekend, or end of last week, to get myself some pair of dungarees, so from Xigxag. Because I'm super tall, like not super tall, but because I'm like 6'1", which is tall for a woman, I think, like it's actually hard to try and find obviously trousers and like things like that that fit me properly. But so I wasn't 100% sure whether the Xigxags would be long enough for me. But they're unisex, so like someone I'd met in the library, one of the lovely mummies, had said that she thought that they would be long enough. So she was like, oh, just buy a pair and try it. So I bought 2 pairs because I knew that worst comes to worst, I sort of let my daughter have them if not, sort of thing. So yeah, I treated myself to 2 pairs. I've got this pair, which is just the standard black pair, and then also like a green sort of corduroy pair, and they fit perfectly. Like, so yeah, even though I'm 6'1", they like fit perfectly in the leg. They're not too short. I just love so much, and it's like such a joy, and they have so many fun patterns. So I feel like I'm like eyeing up loads of the other ones now, which probably is a mistake. But yeah, yeah, it's just nice to find comfortable clothes that good quality comfortable clothes that fit properly. Yeah, so anyway, that's that. In terms of another thing as I'm talking about treating myself, I bought 2 books in last weekend. There was a like Waterstones had a double points offer thing, and that Charles Heacote told me about. So I went online and picked up a couple of books. I picked up The 7 Means of Maliameda by Shihan Karanathalaka. This was one of my favourites last year, and I just wanted to have a physical copy. So because obviously you have to have a physical copy of your favourite books, don't you? Well, you don't have to, but I wanted it for my favourite shelf. So yeah, and yeah, this is a beautiful, beautiful cover. So it's only just come out in paperback, so yeah. And then I also picked up Jamie by L.D. Lipinski. This was one that the lovely Jack from Spread Bookjoy had recently purchased as well, and so sort of like brought to my attention. This is a middle grade book about a character called Jamie, who I believe is in year 6, and they sort of talk about coming out as non-binary in primary school, and how like obviously how that was difficult. Now they're thinking about going to secondary schools, and in their area there's a girls' school and a boys' school, but there's no school for sort of like they feel like there's no school for them. I'll read you what the blurb says. Until we started year 6, until we had to start thinking about secondary schools, until we realised there was one school for boys and one school for girls, but no place for me. So obviously I guess it's like them working out what they're gonna do, which it's just like, it's so heartbreaking. But I think this is going to be like a book about also non-binary joy, so as well. So I'm thinking this is going to be really like a hopeful book, and like I said, it's middle grade, so it'll be really easy to read. It's very, very short. I think it's less than 250 pages, or actually it's 260 pages, but the writing is very, like, the pages aren't filled. That looks like it's filled. But can you see? Can you see? There you go. So yeah, so I can't wait to sort of dive into that story. So I think it's like it's good. There aren't like loads of middle grade books with non-binary characters in, so I think it's like such an important one, and hopefully a really fun story, like I said. So yeah, that's that. Right, I think that, oh no, I know what other things. So Friday, so obviously this is Sunday as you guys are watching us, I would have just on Friday done a live show with Charlie, which I will link below if you want to watch it. This is a live show discussing Royally Doris, which is the last in the Our Doris series. My lovely sister's going to be joining us on the live show, which is going to be fun. So yeah, if you want to go back and watch that, I don't know what's going to happen. That's going to be later today as I film this. And then also, again, as you're watching this afternoon, so Sunday at 3 p.m. BST, we've got a live show with the lovely Shelley from Shelley Swearingen on Alice's channel, from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. So we're all going to be nattering and doing this is when the next plot along is going to be. So yeah, hopefully we'll have loads of fun, and we wouldn't have tormented Shelley too much. Sorry Shelley, if you're watching this. Well, figures, you'll be all right. But yeah, we always had loads of fun on the plot-alongs. So yeah, I hope lots of you guys can join us and just natter with us about things as we always do. So yeah, I hope you guys are well. Like I said, you've had a good week. Let me know how you've been doing. Have a good old natter with me in the comments below. Take care and sending you guys lots of love. Goodbye.